This is Ayurveda Health and Wellness Podcast, where you get to meet the best Ayurveda practitioners so that you can transform your life through Ayurvedic science. This podcast is brought to you by Kiwi Towels, bringing Ayurvedic dyeing to the modern world. Hello and welcome everyone to Ayurveda Health and Wellness Podcast. This is your host Hitesh, and I have with me Dr. Kanika Verma. This is our second episode in the series of episodes, and today we are going to talk about how you can start your journey into Ayurveda. So, hi Kanika, and welcome to the podcast again. Okay, so my first question would be, if someone wants to start practicing Ayurveda, they are at a very beginning stage, what would you suggest where they can go to find the knowledge? The books, let's start with the books first. What books would you recommend?
There are many books, but the one that I would refer is by Dr. Suhas. And he is one of authority in Ayurveda. He has been principal of Ayurveda College in Pune, and he's worked for 30 years abroad teaching Ayurveda. So, and also Dr. Vasant is one very nice person to go to. His books are easily available across the globe, and they have been translated to so many languages. So yes, so even if you don't, even if you don't read English, you can get his books in many other languages like Spanish, French, and so on and so forth.
Okay, so you said Dr. Vasant Lal, right?
Vasant Lad.
Lad. L-A-D.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's V-A-S-A-N-T-L-A-D, right? Okay,
yeah.
Great. And what podcasts, do you follow podcasts at all? Or do you think, if someone...
I don't follow any podcasts. But there are quite a few good podcasts. I think that depends on individual to individual. Like if you like a person, if you are able to understand, if the person is able to communicate the right knowledge to you, then I think you should go for that. But in order to, if you're a beginner in Ayurveda, I suggest that you practice mindfulness, because after practicing Ayurveda for more than a decade, I've realized that, you see, our body tells us what it needs, and it will not be written in the books.
Right.
That is where, it becomes confusing. Say, for example, you're feeling thirsty, okay? Or if you're feeling hungry, you feel very hungry. And Ayurveda says don't eat, eat 3 times a day or something like that. So, probably that might not be applicable for your body type. There is a concept called body type. And in fact, it has been classified as Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and there are some subcategories, but it is said in Ayurveda that each body is completely unique. But because it is not only the body type at work, it is also the mind type. And mind, it can be completely unique. So there are lots of factors, and now I would suggest look at your body type, look at the food that is there and everything. But now I will say that listen to your body. Be mindful and understand what are you feeling right now. If you are feeling thirsty, go drink water. If you're feeling hungry, go have food. And I normally do not recommend junk food at all, but have food that makes you happy. And find out good, happy food options before you find healthy food options. So, you see, yes, it's not about junk food. It's not about promoting junk food, but they are such tasty options available in healthy food. So, if someone asks you to eat salad, you don't like salad, don't go for salad, because your mind doesn't agree with the food, right? So, your mind has to agree with the food. If anyone wants to follow Ayurveda, they should keep this in mind. Because I've seen so many people, they are very enthusiastic in the beginning. They want to follow Ayurveda, they want to have a good, healthy life. But after practicing Ayurveda for some time, they drop out, because it doesn't appeal to their mind. For example, there was a person and someone told him that Ayurveda is vegetarian, you should turn vegetarian. So he turned vegetarian. And when I talked to him, he was already a vegetarian for 1 year. He said that I feel killed. So you see, Ayurveda doesn't recommend that. There are lots of varieties of non-vegetarian food in Ayurveda. So you see, our body is our best counselor, our best doctor. And so all health, mental health as well as physical health, comes from inside. So yes, I would say that observe your body, read your mind.
Okay, so I would say then first observing your body, being mindful is the first step into Ayurveda. Understanding, I guess that's the first step, and that's something that also is along every step of Ayurveda till the end. I
Okay.
mean, it's always you always have to be mindful. It's interesting how you talked about every body being different from other, and and the body and mind combined makes a different persona of every person, and so the eating habits, your daily habits, your routines depend on those the way your body is, and it will be definitely different for each and every person. So that's great. That's good to know. So in terms of Kanika, blogs or magazine, do you suggest or recommend any kind of reading for people who are just starting into Ayurveda?
For blogs, I will give you few directives, because there are lots of blogs. There might be many good blogs which I might not be knowing about.
Right.
So when you're choosing a blog, these are certain points that you should look at. The author should quote the reference, classical reference, because there's
Okay.
so much written about Ayurveda. In the name of Ayurveda, people are writing a lot of things that are not actually Ayurveda. It's mainly taken up from herbalism.
Right.
So what you should look at is the author, whoever is the author of the blog or the podcast or whatever. He should be able to quote the original text. Then only you know that it is real Ayurveda. Classical texts like Charak Samhita, Sushrut Samhita. So you know whether it is right or not. Okay. So if there is if there is a reference of an ancient text, that means that it is coming directly from the source. So that is one thing. Another thing is that the person should be qualified, because there's so many people who are writing about Ayurveda, about their personal experience with Ayurveda, and so on and so forth. There are many people who define Prakriti as something which is exclusive to human body, which is not so. Prakriti or the dosha, they're everywhere. So you see, that's why I believe that if you're reading a blog or a podcast, the person should be qualified to write that blog. So first thing is that there should be a classical reference. If the person is saying something, it should be written in some or the other ancient text, or it should be an interpretation of something which is written in the ancient text. So then you know, okay, it is real Ayurveda, it is classical Ayurveda. Second thing is the person should be qualified. Okay, he must have gone through some training in Ayurveda, some experience in practicing Ayurveda himself. Otherwise, you see, most of the people, they just write about their personal experience, about what they are able to understand, and sometimes it might not be right. Few years back, I was given an assignment by a lady in UK, I think, and she was practicing Ayurveda for past 10 years, and I asked her whether you want me to include Ritucharya, seasonal Ayurvedic regimen, in your book or not. And she said, what is Ritucharya? You've been practicing Ayurveda for 10 years and, you don't you don't know what is Ritucharya, which means that you have not been properly trained and you don't know what is there in classical text. So, I appreciate people sharing their personal experiences, but the personal experiences should be classified as personal experiences and not expert advice. So if you're a beginner, don't go for personal experiences. They are very confusing and every person has different kind of experiences. Yeah. So they can be misinterpretations. Go for expert advice. Go for someone who's qualified.
Okay, no, that makes real sense. How you said that, people are confusing between Ayurveda and herbalism, and that I guess that that is a spot on, um, because Ayurveda comes from a lot of wisdom, ancient wisdom, and unless you draw knowledge from there, then or else it's just a herbalism. It's not Ayurveda.
It's not Ayurveda.
That connects really well. And of course, the qualified. It's like medical. It is a medical science. So, you if you're not well, you would rather go and see a doctor or not a person, and get a consultation from your friends. If you have some illness, you will not go to your relatives. You will rather go to a qualified doctor, and same thing is with Ayurveda. People might have had same issues, but as you said earlier, everybody is different, and so is the solution to the problem or the illness being different. So yeah, that's perfect, and that perfectly makes sense. And if someone has some, questions about Ayurveda, someone who's starting up, obviously they will have a lot of questions, and they will try to, while they are trying to learn, where they can go. Where do you think they should, ask their questions? Do you know about any portal? Of course, I understand, there are obvious places like Quora or Reddit. You can go there, you can ask questions, or is there anything you would suggest from your end?
I would suggest go offline if possible, because all Vedic sciences, they mark the importance of a guru. So if you really want to learn, if you just want general information, then yes, Quora is fine and all these. But if you want real information, go offline, meet a teacher, a qualified one, and there are many. And many in fact, in India, they started, postgraduate certifications for Ayurveda and so on and so forth. And the people who are teaching, they have years of experience, 30, 40 years of experience practicing Ayurveda. They're qualified physicians and so on and so forth. So, sometimes you're a beginner, you just want to know what is there, a kind of tip of an iceberg. But if you really want to learn, go offline. And I believe today there are many institutes that offer.
And what do you suggest about going to the source itself, reading the ancient text?
I would highly recommend that. In fact, yes, go to the text. Go, and there are, kind of good translations available for Charak Samhita, for Sushrut Samhita, and so on and so forth. And who knows, the wisdom of Ayurveda doesn't descend on someone who is well educated or qualified and something. It descends on a mind that is receptive. And who knows, probably if you're a beginner and if you're receptive, you might be able to get some, pearls of wisdom out of it, which even I don't know, or any other qualified person does. So yes, please go ahead, read Charak Samhita, read Sushrut Samhita, because the words that they have written have such depth. They have such depth. You see, I have been decoding even a single one shloka for 1 year, and still I can find new meanings in it. So yes, nothing like it.
Yeah, that's very true, because I've been, reading ancient trying to understand ancient. I wouldn't say I've been reading, trying to understand ancient, and it's just not with Ayurveda, but any Indian ancient text. In any field, even if you talk about astronomy or astrology, there are a lot of Indian ancient texts, and in Vedas, they talk about our solar system, our universe, and there's so much of depth into it. Like a single word will have such a huge,
meaning.
some sort of mathematical formula behind it, and you wouldn't even realize, like, oh my God, this meant this. So it's really about deciphering, what they were saying at those times.
At that time.
And that's really amazing. I mean, one question I had in mind for people who are really, kind of serious about Ayurveda as a career, and because you have made your career in Ayurveda, and what would you suggest their path could be, especially for people who, from abroad or, from Western world, where suppose, still Ayurveda is not recognized medical science, and there are not institutions, that many institutions or recognized institutions to go on and do the masters or research degrees in Ayurveda. What would you suggest if they want to start a career in Ayurveda?
There are two types of people. One is NRI, non-resident Indians. So Indian government now is offering seats in each and every college, each and every Ayurveda college for non-resident Indians, people who are abroad, but they belong to India, even if they've never visited India. So that is one thing. But if you're a complete foreigner, then there are multiple private institutes that are offering certifications in Ayurveda, and they will cover the basics. That is, for example, what is dosha, what is prakriti, and so on and so forth. That will not allow you to practice Ayurveda, because for practicing Ayurveda, you have to clear BAMS, which is a 5.5 years course with 1 year of compulsory medical internship. But still, you can become a counselor, not a physician, as we are called physicians. But you can become a counselor. You can advise about diet and lifestyle. And you know what? I believe that's a huge, huge thing, because I now advise people only about diet and lifestyle. Medicines don't work without diet and lifestyle. And it is so important that if you have proper diet and lifestyle, you might not even need medicines. So even without prescribing medicines, you'll be as good as a physician if you're really good at it, if you really understand. So I think that's good enough, even as a career.
All right. Yeah. So I guess that's a good advice for people who are serious about making Ayurveda as a career, which I'm pretty sure in coming years this will increase as it happened with yoga. Now we have yoga trainers, yoga practitioners, and yoga everywhere, around the world, which somehow, started with from India. And I see a similar path for Ayurveda as well in the future. Okay. So that's it for today, I would say. And thanks a lot, Kanika, for coming on to the show and sharing such important knowledge for the people who want to start their journey into Ayurveda. They start their careers into Ayurveda, and we will probably have another session on some other topics related to Ayurveda very soon. And thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed our podcast. Do not forget to follow us or subscribe. This podcast is brought to you by Kiwi Towels, bringing Ayurvedic dyeing to the modern world.